Have you ever looked at a man, maybe even the man in the mirror, and thought, how did he end up like that? Not just unsuccessful, not just lost, but stupid. Not in the IQ test kind of way, but in the tragic, avoidable, self-sabotaging kind of way? Because here's the harsh truth most men aren't ready to hear. Stupidity, as Marcus Aurelius might argue, isn't always about intelligence. It's about ignoring wisdom. It's about rejecting what's real. It's about trading long-term strength for short-term emotion. If you're watching this, you're probably not that man, but you might be dancing dangerously close to becoming him. Before we dive in, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and most importantly, stick with me till the end of this video, because these 6 signs we're about to explore, backed by the brutal truth of Stoic philosophy, might just save you from wrecking your love life, your career, and even your sense of self. So let's build the frame before we hang the picture. Let's talk about Marcus Aurelius, Rome's philosopher king, a man of absolute power who lived with absolute discipline, a man who warned us centuries ago about the very traps modern men are falling into. From chasing empty pleasure to reacting emotionally, his meditations weren't diary entries. They were a manual for men like you and me to not end up stupid. And with that context, let's uncover the 6 glaring signs of a stupid man through the lens of Stoicism and the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius. 1. He lives in reaction, not intention. Do you remember the first time you fell in love? Not just a crush. I mean real love, the kind that made your chest tighten when you saw her name pop up on your screen, the kind that made you do things you never thought you'd do just to see her smile. Now, do you remember the moment it all started falling apart? Yeah, I know. You don't want to go there. But trust me, stay with me, because that moment where things turned from sweet to sour usually didn't happen because of a lack of love. It happened because you reacted instead of responded. I'll tell you a story. There was a guy named Arjun, smart guy, big dreams. And he had a girl, Mira. She loved him deeply. But Arjun had one problem. He didn't know how to handle emotion. Whenever she brought up a concern, he exploded. Whenever she cried, he shut down. Whenever she said, "We need to talk," he rolled his eyes or walked away. Arjun thought he was being real, but he wasn't real. He was reactive, and every reaction pushed Mira a little farther away, until one day she left, and Arjun sat alone with the messages she never replied to, wondering how love slipped through his fingers. Marcus Aurelius said it perfectly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. The truth is, Arjun had no power, not because he was weak, but because he never claimed it. He gave his power to the moment, to anger, to pride. Does that sound familiar? Maybe you've lost someone too. Maybe you're in a relationship right now where love is quietly fading, and you don't know how to stop it. Let me tell you something honest. Stupid men think reacting is power. Wise men, Stoic men, know that true power is in the pause, in the breath between her words and your response, in the silence when you want to yell but choose to listen, in the moments where you feel insecure but instead of accusing, you ask, what's really going on? That's the strength Marcus was talking about. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Your love story isn't destroyed by what she says. It's destroyed by how you react. When you live in reaction, you're not building love, you're burning it. But when you live with intention, when you control your mind, you become safe, strong, unshakable, and she feels that. She feels that in your eyes, in your words, in your silence. So I ask you again, do you remember your love story? Now I ask, are you going to keep reacting or start rewriting it? 2, he worships the approval of others. Have you ever changed who you are just to keep someone from leaving? Think about it. Maybe it was in high school when you dressed a certain way just to impress her. Or maybe it was more recent, when you agreed with something you didn't believe in, just to avoid another argument. Maybe you even let go of a dream, just so someone could feel more comfortable loving you. If you've ever done that, if you've ever shrunk yourself just to be liked, you're not alone. Let me tell you about a guy named Rishi. Rishi was in love with a girl named Sana. She was beautiful, popular, and had a strong personality. When they first got together, Rishi was confident. He had his own mind, his own style, his own energy. But little by little he started changing, not because he wanted to grow, but because he was scared to lose her. He stopped talking to some of his friends because she didn't like them. He stopped posting certain things because she might disapprove. He even started pretending to like things, TV shows, opinions, music, just to avoid conflict. And at first it worked. The relationship looked peaceful from the outside, but inside, Rishi was slowly dying. You see, when you trade authenticity for approval, you don't just lose yourself, you lose their respect too. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." Think about that for a second. You were born with your own voice, your own mind, your own rhythm. Why are you living like you need permission to be who you are? A stupid man, yes, stupid, makes public opinion his god. He lives for validation, for applause, for likes, both on social media and in his relationship. But here's the twist. The more he chases approval, the less attractive he becomes. You want to know what makes a man magnetic? Certainty, integrity, truth. The moment Rishi started saying, "No, I don't agree with that," the moment he started dressing for himself, not the audience, the moment he started speaking his truth, even if it shook things up, Sana looked at him differently. Because even though she was the one who wanted control, deep down, she wanted a man she could respect, not one she could mold. Let me ask you again, have you ever lost yourself trying to keep someone else? And more importantly, aren't you tired of living? Like you're waiting for permission? Stoicism teaches us if you want peace, you have to stop letting the noise outside drown the voice inside. You don't need to be liked by everyone. You need to be real with yourself. And believe it or not, that's what creates lasting love. Not fake smiles, not watered down opinions, just you, raw, honest, unshakable. Stick with me, because this next sign is the one most men ignore, until it's too late. 3. He lacks emotional discipline. Have you ever said something in the heat of the moment and watched everything you built with someone come crashing down in seconds? Maybe you didn't mean it. Maybe you were just angry. But once those words were out, you could see it in her eyes. Something broke. Something that couldn't be easily put back together. It's wild, isn't it? How you can spend months, years, building love, and lose it in a single moment of emotional weakness. Let me tell you about a man named Kabir. Kabir loved fiercely. He was loyal, romantic, always doing the little things, bringing her coffee, holding her hand, texting her good morning. But he had one fatal flaw. Kabir couldn't control his emotions. If she took a little longer to reply, he panicked. If she talked to another guy, he became cold and passive-aggressive. And when they fought, he didn't argue to understand. He argued to win. He raised his voice, slammed doors, said things like, "Maybe we're just not meant for each other," even though he didn't mean it, even though he would beg to take it back later. But by the time he realized, she was already pulling away, not because she stopped loving him, but because she didn't feel safe around his emotions anymore. Marcus Aurelius said, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you." You see, Stoicism doesn't tell you to become cold, it teaches you to become calm. Emotional discipline isn't about not feeling, it's about not being controlled by what you feel. Stupid men believe real love means emotional chaos, fights, yelling, proving a point. But wise men, Stoic men, know love grows in the quiet strength of restraint. Let me ask you something personal again. Have you ever seen that look on her face? The one where she's tired. Not from life, but from walking on eggshells around your moods. Yeah, I know that one hurts. But here's the truth. Your love life will never rise above your ability to master your emotions. She doesn't want perfect. She doesn't want a robot. She wants a man who can feel deeply, but not drown in those feelings. A man who listens when she's upset instead of defending himself. A man who takes a breath before responding. A man who knows his power is in his peace. Kabir learned that lesson too late. But you still have time. Ask yourself, when was the last time you chose patience over pride? When was the last time you stayed silent? Not because you were scared, but because peace meant more than being right, because that's emotional discipline. And that's what keeps love alive when everything else falls apart. We're only 3 signs in, and already you're beginning to see it's not about being tough, it's about being in control. 4. He escapes responsibility. Have you ever loved someone so deeply, but still lost them because you just couldn't take accountability? Be honest, not just with me, but with yourself. Do you remember that moment? When things were falling apart, and instead of asking, "What did I do wrong?" you blamed her. You told yourself, "She changed." You said, "She's just being dramatic." You whispered to your friends, she was never satisfied anyway. But deep down, you knew. You knew it wasn't all her. You just didn't want to face the part you played. Let me tell you a story about a man named Yash. Yash was charming. He was funny, driven, and had a magnetic presence. But there was a pattern. Every time things got tough, he ran from responsibility. When his girlfriend Anya told him she felt unheard, he laughed it off. When she cried and said she needed more emotional support, he got defensive. And when she said, "I feel like I'm doing this relationship alone," he replied, "You're too sensitive. You're overthinking." That one sentence, "you're overthinking," became the slow poison that killed the trust in their love. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." See, stupid men blame, stoic men build. And building requires responsibility, not just for the good moments, but for the mistakes too, for the miscommunications, for the things you didn't say when she needed to hear you, for the times you let your pride speak louder than your love. Let me ask you something you might not want to hear. How many good women have you pushed away just because you couldn't say, "I'm sorry," without making an excuse afterward? Yash eventually lost Anya, not because he didn't love her, but because he made her carry the weight of the relationship alone, while he stood on the sidelines pointing fingers. And here's the irony. It was only after she left that he finally saw it. He wasn't the victim. He was just a man who never learned to own his own mess. Responsibility isn't about being perfect. It's about having the courage to admit when you're not. Do you have that courage? Because here's the truth. Love isn't destroyed by mistakes. It's destroyed by the refusal to own them. And the moment you stop blaming, the moment you say, "It was my fault, I should have done better," that's the moment everything changes. That's when trust begins to rebuild. That's when love begins to breathe again. And that's when you stop being a boy in a man's body and become something rare. A stoic, a leader, a man who carries, not complains. So I'll ask you one last time. Are you escaping your responsibility or embracing it? Because the love you're fighting for might just be waiting for your honesty. He overindulges in comfort. When was the last time you pushed yourself for someone you loved? Not just a sweet gesture, not just flowers or a dinner date, but truly becoming better, more disciplined, more stable, more dependable, because you knew they deserved a stronger version of you? Let me take you back to the story of Arav. Arav was a good guy, kind-hearted, loyal, deeply in love with a woman named Aisha. They had the kind of love that felt effortless, at least in the beginning. Late-night calls, hand-in-hand walks, playful teasing, deep talks under the stars. But something started changing. Not in her, in him. The moment things got comfortable, Arav got lazy. He stopped trying. He stopped growing. He stopped chasing the best version of himself because he thought, "She's already mine." He started sleeping in late, skipping the gym, letting his dreams collect dust on the shelf. Work goals faded, passion projects forgotten. His ambition turned into excuses. He thought love was about staying cozy, but Isha didn't fall in love with comfort. She fell in love with a man who had fire in his soul. And now all she saw was a flicker. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You love yourself too much when you indulge in ease." That's not love. That's weakness hiding in pleasure. Stoicism teaches us the man who chooses discomfort over comfort becomes unbreakable. But a stupid man? He stays in his bubble believing that what once worked will always work. Let me ask you right now, are you growing in your love life or are you hiding behind routine? Think about your girl, the one who believed in you before you even believed in yourself. The one who said, "I know you're capable of so much more." Do you remember the look in her eyes when you used to talk about your dreams? Now ask yourself, what would she see in you today? Because here's the truth. Love dies in comfort zones, not because of cheating, not because of distance, but because one person stops evolving and expects the other to stay inspired. You don't have to be a millionaire. You don't need to become some perfect alpha version of yourself. But you do need to wake up and show up every day as a man who refuses to settle. A man who understands love is not a resting place. It's a battleground for growth. Arav, he didn't cheat. He didn't lie. But he lost the love of his life simply because he got too comfortable. Don't let that be your story. Ask yourself now, when was the last time you made her fall in love with your effort? Not your words, not your promises, your action. 6. He fears solitude. Have you ever stayed in a relationship? Not because it was right, but because you were scared to be alone? Be honest. Have you ever mistaken company for connection? Have you ever held on to someone? Not because they made you better, but because their presence kept your loneliness quiet. Let me introduce you to the final chapter of this story. The story of Rohan. Rohan wasn't the type of man who liked silence. He needed noise, conversations, notifications, anyone to text. Because in the silence, the truth echoed too loudly. You see, Rohan fell in love with Arya, not because he was whole, but because she distracted him from the fact that he wasn't. She became his comfort, his validation, his proof that he was enough. And the second she pulled away, even just a little, he panicked. He'd send paragraphs, call 5 times, overthink every unread message. Not because she did something wrong, but because being alone felt unbearable. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." But Rohan hadn't built that retreat. He built his home in someone else's presence, not in his own peace. Let me ask you now, can you sit with yourself, truly sit, without music, without scrolling, without reaching for someone? Because if you can't, you'll always cling. You'll mistake any love, even toxic love, for safety. Stupid men chase relationships because they're terrified of facing themselves. They bounce from person to person, thinking the next one will complete them. But Stoic men, they know that solitude isn't empty. It's where your true strength is built. Do you remember your first heartbreak? Do you remember that hollow feeling, that ache in your chest at 2 a.m.? Now here's the question, did you run from that feeling? Or did you grow from it? Because the men who run stay boys forever. But the ones who sit in that pain, who learn to befriend it, who build their identity not on someone else's love but their own inner clarity, those are the men who create unshakable love. Rohan eventually lost Arya, not because she stopped caring, but because she felt like she was his emotional crutch, not his partner. She told him, "You don't love me, you need me to survive." And that's not the same thing. If those words sting a little, it means there's something inside you worth healing. So I'll ask one last time. Are you with her because you love her? Or because you fear being without her? Because real love begins the moment you can finally say, "I choose you not because I need you, but because I want to walk beside you, not hide behind you." Solitude is not your enemy, brother. It's your preparation ground. And only a man who masters being alone is truly ready to love deeply. 10 Marcus Aurelius suggestions for this title, woven throughout. 1. Control your mind. Don't react emotionally. 2. Ignore external praise, seek internal approval. 3. Take responsibility for your life, or delay gratification, master comfort. F. Speak less, act more. 6. Meditate on death daily. 7. Practice virtue over victory. 8. Use obstacles as fuel. 9. Avoid distractions, embrace focus. 10. Ask what is within my power. These aren't suggestions, they're survival tools. Use them or risk becoming the man who's always one decision away from regret. So which one hit you hardest? Which one made you uncomfortable? That's where your growth lives. Because the truth is, the stupid man isn't born that way. He chooses it. In the small moments, the ignored truths, the lazy excuses. But the wise man, he chooses differently, quietly, daily. Choose wisely, brother. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.